Hey everyone, I'm out here in the garage and I've got the Acura Legend once again. So what I'm going to be doing today is replacing the timing belt tensioner. So stay tuned. So one of the reasons why I haven't driven this car is because the timing belt tensioner needs to be replaced, and also the car cosmetically needs some paint. So I don't really drive it much at all, but I'd like to get it back on the road, at least to get a little bit of exercise instead of just sitting in my driveway and rotting away. So what I'll do in the description below is I'll point to several videos that I've made, and those should get you to the point we're going to pick up from in this video. So let's get into it. You've probably noticed a caption in at least a couple of the Acura Legend videos on the channel that mention the knocking noise you may have heard when the engine is running as being a faulty timing belt tensioner. Alright, so the pulley we're after is this one right here. That's a timing belt tensioner. So if you're trying to track down that noise, you can use something like this. This is a mechanic's stethoscope. So at this point, you should have the upper covers off the timing belt. And what I'm going to do now is just kind of take it from there. Alright, so we've got all of our drive belts off. And what I'm going to do now is take off the AC pulley. So there are two bolts. There's one right here at the top. That's 12 millimeters. And then there's a second bolt below the pulley that's also 12 millimeters. So I'm going to slide this up a little bit. All right. And there is our AC idler pulley. All right, so what I'm going to do next is remove the dipstick. Take that out. Set that aside. And then there is a bolt down there for the dipstick tube we need to take out. That's 10 millimeters. That is right down here. So I've got a 10 millimeter socket, extension, and then my ratchet. Get down in there. Next, I'm going to pull the dipstick tube out. There we go. It's got a little O-ring on it, so make sure you don't lose that. And then the hole down there also needs to be plugged. And I've seen people use, I think it was like a wire nut. That works pretty well. So I've got one here. Put that in there. So that's just to cover it up temporarily so we don't get a bunch of debris in there. Alright, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to detach these vacuum hoses from this cover, because this cover needs to come off. So just lift up, pop that up. Those are off the cover. Then there are a number of these clips right here, kind of all around the cover. So those need to be detached. Now you can see mine came out easily because I've taken this apart many times. One thing you can do is take your fingernail, put it behind here, lift this up, and then just slide this through with a screwdriver. That should come out. So play around with that, see if that'll work for you. Like I said, I've taken this off a million times, so I don't remember exactly how I got that off the first time. And I think it was just a screwdriver to push it through. Okay, so since it's really hard to see in this area, what I'm going to do is pull the wire harness cover off, and then I'll show you where all the clips and the bolts go. This should come off now. Gonna pull it out that way, I think. There we go. So you can see right there, if we turn it around, there's a clip right there, another one right there, another one here, and one there, and one over here. So there are 5 total clips. This one is the toughest one because it actually goes underneath. As you can see there, it goes underneath instead of clipping at the top here. Our bolts, you got one right there, 10 millimeters, another 10 millimeter here, and then this one that goes on the timing cover over here. And also don't forget to unclip the oil cooler wire too from this area. Alright, so I have taken the splash shield off underneath, just a bunch of bolts.
Next, we'll move on to one of the tougher parts of this job, and that's removing the crank pulley bolt. I'm using the Honda crank pulley tool, a 19mm deep socket, and a couple breaker bars, but there are other methods you can use. This one has worked just fine for me over the years though. Also, it's best that the breaker bar attached to the pulley tool have a shallow head. The setup for the removal is to first insert the pulley tool with the breaker bar attached into the crank pulley so that it's angled diagonally to the left and near the floor. You may want to place some sort of padding on the floor since the breaker bar will hit the floor when we attempt to remove the crank pulley bolt. Then the 19mm deep socket with the second breaker bar attached gets placed inside the Honda tool's opening and onto the pulley bolt.
Alright, so I'm going to try to get this off now. I have the breaker bar positioned way up here so I can get more leverage. And I got to be careful of these fans here too, so let's see how this goes. Try pulling from this side. There we go. That is tight. I think I can take the tool off now. Okay. Okay, there is our crank pulley bolt right there. See how big that is. And then we can pull our crank pulley off. Slides off like that. Pull that out. There's also a key in here. You want to make sure you don't lose that. I'm just going to leave it in there. I know where it is. It's on there right now, but we definitely don't want to lose that because then we won't be able to get our crank pulley back on correctly. So we need to pull the oil cooler wire off right there. Take that off. And then we've got to remove all the bolts for the lower cover. Alright, so I've got all the bolts off the lower cover. I didn't want to bore you with that part because it's really hard to see. So I'll show you all the locations once I get the cover off. Go ahead and pull this away. And it may get stuck on this side because of some of the epoxy from the crank sensor that runs down the front of the engine. That's normal. Okay, I'm going to come out this way. I think it's going to be best to come out this way. It's been a while since I last did this. Okay, and there is our cover. Right there. So since we verified our timing is correct, what I'm going to do now is make the marks that I made before. There's that pink mark right there for the right cam pulley. I'll make a mark right on that, on the belt, just to make sure the belt's reinstalled correctly. Same thing on this side on the blue mark. Right down here. So I have a silver Sharpie to do that. That looks good. And then down below, down on the crankshaft, I'm going to pull this little plate off, take that off. And then on the gear down there and on the timing belt, I'm going to make a mark that crosses both of those, just to make sure that we put our timing belt back on correctly down there. I've got marks all over the place, so I've got to be careful to make sure I remember which marks are which, because I've taken the timing belt off multiple times. And what I'm going to do now is go ahead and pull the tensioner off. So that is right here.
So just a word of caution here, I would loosen the tensioner about one turn first to remove the tension from the belt. What can happen if this is done haphazardly is that the tension on the belt can cause a camshaft to spin, and that'll throw off your timing. Then you're possibly looking at removing the rocker assembly to reset the camshaft timing, and I don't think we want to go there.
Alright, so I've got a 12mm. I'm going to go ahead and loosen that up. Alright, that's our tensioner right there, and the spring for the tensioner. And from what I can tell, this looks fine.